All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Maxson, and everyone else.
It's Thursday, May 26th, 3:01. We're going to call the Strategic Planning Ad Hoc Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk?
Livingston,
That's it.
Mackey,
Here.
Newton. We have a quorum.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. We have the minutes from May 3rd and May 5th.
Move to approve both sets of minutes.
Motion in a second. Chair?
Livingston,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions? Don't see anybody from staff here, so I'm going to assume. Any members, any changes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Livingston,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Newton. Motion approved.
All right. So the main item for discussion today is the report that we've been reviewing. Our past 2 to 3 meetings have been the review of the goals. In the packet is the updated report that has the red line edits that basically are all of our notes and comments from the previous work sections combined. And so today I wanted us to discuss if you had any edits, comments, changes to the recommended revisions in red. And then also to really just talk about this as a whole to make sure there's not any other pieces of information that we want to see in this before we move forward with sending the updated goals to council. That was very open-ended, but if anybody has any thoughts, please.
I was waiting to see if other people had thoughts because, you know, I have some.
Ms. Newton.
Sure. So thank you for providing this and thank you for providing the red line changes. I found it helpful. I had a few minor suggestions and a few questions and then a few things for discussions, but I'll start with the easy part. And so this is just one thing for our consideration. On page, I guess it's page 45. We're dealing with 2 sets of page numbers here. On page 45, when they list our core values, this is really minor. The last core value that's listed is proactive. And I wondered if it might be better if that was proactivity, just to kind of match the wording format of our other items that we have. Again, it's very minor. It doesn't change how we do things either way, but I just wanted to pose that for consideration. And then there was a part, which I thought I put a sticky on it. I'll try to find it again. There was one of the comments that said, should this go someplace else, Newton? And I didn't know if that was because I asked the question or because you wanted me to suggest another place, but I had a suggestion. I just can't find it right now.
Okay, let me go back to your first one. You said proactive change to what? What was your recommendation?
My recommendation was proactivity because we have accessibility, accountability, and then proactive. So just for consistency, I thought we might want to look at that.
Okay. And then, yes, that question was?
It was about keeping council updated. Mm-hmm. And there was another section. I want to say that it currently is in section 6 about keeping council updated. I don't know, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk asked me what page. I'm looking somewhere. There's a comment that says, it has my name on it. And so I thought that was an invitation for me to opine. But my sticky note fell off. One moment, please.
Page 62.
Yes, that's it. Perfect. Thank you. So on page 62, it talks about notifying council members about planned activities and events in their district. And I was thinking that that could easily be moved into one of the objectives under item 5, public engagement, because part of the reason for notifying council is so that we can involve the public and make sure that they know what's happening. And it seemed to me that it might fit there.
I agree with that. That was my thoughts. as
We
well.
also talked about two-way communication. So there's communication that needs to happen within the county, which includes us, and then communication that needs to happen outside of the county.
Talk about the one that's on 6 now.
Page 62.
Yeah.
Okay.
So objective 6.6. Yep. Okay.
And I just had two other questions, but I'm happy to pause in case other colleagues want
So-
to ask questions.
For the notified council members, we talked about moving it under 5. Did you have a specific objective number that you wanted it added to?
I didn't. Anybody could. But if I just had to guess, I would maybe say, objective 5.4, which is on page 59. I think there's actually an extra word there. Develop community engagement plan, and then strike the word development that appears at the end. That might be a place where that could easily go.
Got it.
But I really think.
So just to be clear, the recommendation now is to take the item that is, well, the initiative that is under 6.6 and move it to 5.4.
Pardon me, yes.
And to change, yes.
And then to remove that extra development that's currently listed on 5.4 on page 59.
Livingston, you had something?
No, unfortunately, my schedule allowed me to go through it as detailed as I had intended to.
All right, Ms. Newton, your next comment?
Okay, on page 55, the very top item, I just don't recall this. Upon adoption of the Lower Richland Tourism Plan, implement land use components into comprehensive plan by year end, create comprehensive plan dashboards related to the plan and its various initiatives. And
Where are you at? Oh, wait, I
Page
see, at the
55,
top.
at the top.
Okay.
And I support that. I guess I didn't remember this item or where it came from. So I guess I just wanted to inquire.
Yes. Ms. Thomas,
Good
you
afternoon, Madam
recognize.
Chair. If it's okay, may I address? Thank you. Actually, this was something that came from one of the groups in Greenville. I don't know which one or how, but this was specifically in the group that in the information that came back from Baker Tilly.
Okay, and then I guess one of the things that I was curious about is the second sentence, create a comprehensive plan dashboard. Are we only talking about that as it relates to the Lower Richland Tourism Plan, or is that something that is just being considered more broadly for the comprehensive plan as well? Just thinking about how we standardize what we do.
No, ma'am, we're actually looking to have a dashboard for the entire strategic plan and other items across the county.
Okay. Thank you.
So Ms. Newton, going back to, I guess it's 4.2. Is that too specific? Is that something that you want to?
I think that contextual information is appropriate if it was more a question about how we were looking at standardizing how we were reporting. And so if it was something that was important for the Lower Richland Tourism Plan, then I think it's also important for other initiatives that we're doing as well. And that sounds like it's being covered. So I just want it to be clear.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Newton, to your point there, perhaps what I might recommend is actually taking the actual specific contextual information, taking that out and then passing that on to the departments as we start to work through it so that they actually have that as metrics to use for information. The comprehensive plan and using the dashboards would remain, but then the actual specifics and the examples, we could actually take that out to make it less granular for people who may be reviewing the document, if that would suffice.
Yeah, that might make sense because for me, some of these examples don't actually apply to this. They actually apply to other areas. So I think that might make sense.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem. Thank you.
If you finish my list,
Go
I
right
just
ahead.
had two more things.
Yep.
And one thing, I don't know the page number, so I'll tell you about that in case somebody else knows. It was just a question about the amenities piece, because I remember reading about us talking about it in the minutes and then reading about it in this document. I just wanted to make sure that that amenities piece was in line, because again, I think that came out of one of the groups that I wasn't a part of. And so my question was always if that was a will of council or like a suggestion from a few people. But regardless, I know we talked about it last time, and I just want to make sure that whatever we're sending to council is what we as a committee are in agreement with.
I thought the question last time was what we meant by amenities.
Yeah, and are y'all talking about objective 2.2? I just want to make sure when we talk about amenities that we're saying the same, because there was that in the economic development section. And then I think there was another section that mentioned amenities in a different manner. Oh, well, the other section was 4.3, but we took that out. So it talked about creating excellent amenities and facilities, but we referred that to just facilities. And then the other amenities section was related to economic development that talked about shopping and retail and commercial, more so like, I guess, those additional amenities.
Yes, I think it's 2.2. And again, I just wanted to touch on that because I know we had a conversation about it last time. So if everybody feels like this is in alignment, then that's fine.
And I don't know, I know amenities was the word used, shopping was the word used. A lot of the conversation in the group that I was in at that table centered around, how to work with community development to maybe do facade grants, help to, do facelifts to buildings to help where shopping is, to encourage places where there maybe have been empty buildings to now, if we could help spruce it up the front, maybe they can encourage folks to come there.
Right. And to me, maybe, but that reads differently from this. Like the way that I'm reading this is hypothetically, what can we do to recruit an Apple store, for example, which I am completely on board with, by the way. But so again, just trying to make sure that we have the level of clarity by what was meant here, because that's the way that I'm interpreting it. Or for example, I hear it in my area all the time. There is a desire for different types of amenities, or, I was meeting with constituents that were like, why do we only have this kind of grocery store? Why don't we have that kind of grocery store? But that's a really specific type of business recruitment, which has a lot of implications. And so again, if that's what we're doing and that was what came out of the group, it's fine. I just want to make sure that I'm clear before I send it forward.
Their thoughts?
And if we want to just let council discuss it because more of those people were part of that conversation, then maybe that's the way. I don't know.
I feel good about the initiatives. The wording for the objective language seems slightly off to me, but the initiatives I feel are in line with several of the conversations that I heard.
Yeah. And maybe that's the challenge that I have. I mean, I feel okay with the initiatives, but maybe as we discuss it as a body, we can look at that objective language.
Right? Any other comments, edits, suggestions?
Okay, well, then the last thing on my list
Yep.
is really just a question. And I tried to discuss this before, but I'm not sure that I had the right words. And if you look at page 36 and you look at the draft of the vision statement, Richland County will be a leading community creating opportunities for equitable, sustainable, and meaningful growth and living for all residents. The county will be a foundation for collaboration as we learn from the past and continue to create long-lasting impacts into the future. What I wanted to have a conversation about is something that I'm struggling with, and that's the word growth. Because on the one hand, there's the growth that everyone agrees on, right? Economic growth. I don't know anybody that doesn't want to see their money grow, for example, or educational attainment growth or those types of things. We also are in a situation where in a lot of our areas, for example, yours, Ms. Mackey, and mine, Ms. Mackey, where we're also dealing with other types of growth like residential growth, et cetera. And, where we're trying to make sure as part of the strategic plan, we're putting in equitable infrastructure and resources. My question is, I guess I question if growth is the right word there, or maybe if there's a different word, because it's, while we certainly, support growth and the growth that our residents want to see, I want to, I guess, avoid the perception of Richland County putting our hand on a scale when it's not economic, saying it has to, this has to grow, this has to be bigger. Maybe it does in some areas, maybe it doesn't. And I'm not sure that I'm expressing myself clearly, but that's something that I'm struggling with this language and in certain other parts of this document.
Okay. Did you have any recommendations for amended language?
I mean, I don't know if this is what was meant, but, and this is one of the vaguer items. I don't know if it's a quality of life question, but there are a lot of things that are meaningful in our communities besides just a general word like growth. So I might suggest something like that. And again, others may not have that concern, but it's one that I have.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
In sitting and listening to y'all, I did jot down some notes and was wondering if the following might achieve your goal, Ms. Newton. Richland County is a leading community creating equitable, sustainable, and meaningful opportunities for a high quality of living for all residents.
That would certainly address my concern, and I feel like would be consistent with the original intent.
Maybe. Richland County will be a leading community creating equitable, sustainable, and meaningful opportunities for a high quality of living for all residents.
And I like that. I think there might be opportunities to tweak it a little more that we don't necessarily have to spend here, but that does address my concern. And I do think it's better because that's what we're really talking about. It's not just growth, it's really about opportunity and quality of life.
ACA Thomas, did you write that down? Okay, thank you.
Mackie, those are all the things on my list.
Okay. Mr. Livingston?
Good.
Good. All right, I did want to just point out that there was an additional appendix item added that was not in the original document that we reviewed. So I just wanted to make sure everybody noticed that. It is the Economic Development Strategic Plan. We had talked about, and
Can you reference the page also, Ms. Mackey?
it starts on page 73.
Because I will admit that I missed that part of the appendix because everything else were things I'd already read.
And so I'm getting my list, hold on.
So is the whole thing in red just because?
It's the
it
whole
was
thing in
added
red.
wholesale?
And so we had, goal 2 is invest in economic development. And in there, 2.3 talks about promote and support a regional and state economic development team. And under that has initiatives that relate to a marketing strategy and all these other things tied to economic development. And so this appendix is economic development strategic plan that the Economic Development Office is already commissioned and is completed. And that office is currently working off of this plan. And they have metrics and they're tracking what they're doing. And so I wanted this document included in our strategic plan to make sure that the things that we are suggesting, some of it's already in there, like the marketing plan, that is already a part of economic development strategic plan itself. So I don't think we need to recreate the wheel, but more so make sure we're monitoring that and that it is continuing to move forward and meet the timeline we desire, but we don't need to recreate it. So this was provided as additional information just so everyone was aware that the plan does exist and can also review it as needed. Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question, because I remember presentations about it, but for my information, do you happen to know when that plan was adopted? And did that go through council for approval, or did it just come to us for information? Because I know there were presentations, I just can't recall.
I'm gonna let staff handle that.
I think council adopted it, but we better double check.
It would be good to, because in my short time here, I've run into some cases where people think things were presented or they think they were adopted or whatever. And it may not need to have been adopted, but it would be great to confirm.
All right, so hearing no other comments, suggestions, questions, or thoughts, I will take that as everyone, all hearts and minds are clear and everyone has brought forward what they have.
And it's what responses you get from your colleagues.
Okay, so want to discuss next steps. I know we went through a few comments today, and if staff could update the document with those comments, would this body like to see the document back again, or are you ready to move forward and take action? What are your thoughts on next steps?
For me, that was so minor, I'm okay with not having to meet again to discuss.
I agree. I just would like us to, as part of this conversation, talk about, what happens next. Are we distributing it to our colleagues, well in advance of the meeting so that they're reviewing it? What is the most productive process for us to move forward with adopting this?
So I'm going to kind of put my thoughts, and then if you all have any additional thoughts, and of course, if you all have thoughts as well, please share. But with the document, right now we are in the middle of budget, so I definitely would like us to kind of get through the budget process first, and then look at a time next month to get it to council in enough time where they do have time to review it and get their feedback on it. And once we get approval, then meet again to start talking about what is our timeline for the initiatives, laying out an actual dashboard and framework, and figuring out how often we need to meet and what the reporting will look like coming from the committee.
Do you envision that, for example, we're distributing an updated document and then we're putting it on a council agenda for discussion there, or are we discussing it in a workshop format? I mean, where do we have the discussion about this?
I'm saying it goes straight to council, but if you all think we need a work session, please say so.
I think I'm of two minds. I don't I don't necessarily think we have a work session. I guess I'm just trying to figure out how can we how can we set it up such that, you know, we don't end up having an hour-long conversation at a regular council meeting about it, or maybe we plan the council meeting where we have that much time. So I'll see if Mr. Livingston, who's had more of these, has any thoughts on that.
We may be better off having a work session to make sure we can vote. But there are other changes.
And then that's my concern. I don't want to have a work session just to have a work session, but I'm just concerned that a council meeting would be
Okay. And then with the work session, are you envisioning staff presenting it? Who is presenting this to council? So we can plan accordingly.
Yes, the way that we've gone through it here has kind of been a hybrid where if we're distributing the information well in advance and then we're just going through the items, I think that we can just manage it as a discussion. We may want to have somebody give maybe, you know, the 5-minute recap of how we got here, but otherwise, I think if we just went through the items like we did to see who has thoughts or comments, then we can have staff answer as appropriate. And we may want to the extent possible where we're distributing information in advance, we may want to also request, hey, if possible, can you submit your questions by X date in case staff needs to do some research so that so that the work session can be more conclusive and definitive as opposed to having to go back. That's just my suggestion.
Ms. Livingston, any thoughts? All right, so work session, we're gonna try to do, you guys wanna do work session in June?
It'd have to be the end.
Correct, yeah.
Very end.
All right. Would anybody like to make a motion for any of these items that have been discussed?
Motion would and forward to council per our discussion.
I'll second that for discussion and ask if staff knows what that means or if we need to clarify that at all.
Oh, you know I enjoy clarification.
That's for a work session now.
Yes. For my understanding, the motion meant that we're moving forward with a work session, and after the work session, it will then go to council.
Yes, and the process behind that was that, you know, not just were we having a work session, but the materials are going to be distributed to council members in advance, and that we were going to set a time frame to request any questions that staff could research in advance of the work session.
Madam Chair, I heard end of June, with June 30th. Be end of June enough? That would be the last Thursday, I think, in June, or that too end of June? Just trying to help you get a date.
Sure. Unfortunately, that is indeed the end of June. I will be out of town that Thursday, but
I'm going to be quiet now. I don't want to create problems.
oh, you're not creating problems.
It doesn't matter what day near the end of June for me. So
We might want to also
yeah, Thursday, and you know.
You had anything else about your dates?
Well, I was just wondering if we might, as we look at availability, potentially look not at the July 4th holiday, but also maybe look at early July, just because comments have to be processed as part of this plan. It has to be distributed to council. We have to give them time for review and give them time to respond. So, we might want to bump it, to the beginning of July. But either way, however it pleases the body. I just know I personally won't be in town that last week of July, but that should not be held up because of
Last
me.
week of July, or
Sorry,
last
pardon
week of
me.
June?
Last week of June.
Okay.
Doesn't matter to me whether.
But I would like to, it is now May 26th, so I would like not to go a whole month with this and not have this sit. Because then I might have some committee members that forget what it said. So
How late, Ms. Newton, can you do it in June?
Again, don't hold it up because of me. I just will be out of town that last week of June.
The third, hold on.
23rd, June 23rd.
I don't know yet. No,
That was a question?
No, that was my real answer. I wasn't trying to be funny. Yeah, we can schedule it for them and see if that works for our colleagues.
All right, so we had a motion, a second, and that was discussion. All right, Madam Clerk, did you call for the vote?
Livingston,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Move to adjourn.
Livingston, Mackey,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Adjourn, thank you.